Background's cooler than mine. I love it.
I appreciate it, Chuck. It's good to meet you, man.
Nice to meet you.
I got to start by saying I am probably the biggest Dream Warriors fan.
Yes.
So I'm going to nerd out just chatting with you. Um, I absolutely loved Witchboard, man. Let me just start with that. Um, I wasn't a huge fan of the original, but I love your version of it. So let me jump in. Let me ask you some questions. Um, what kind of drew you back to horror with Witchboard, and what inspired you to kind of revisit this remake after like 40 years almost of the original?
Timing is everything. First of all, I started in horror, as you know, with a
Right.
Blob and Nightmare 3. And I was thrilled because as a new director, I got such a great response. I uh I didn't want to get branded in horror forever though. So I come from comedy improv in Chicago theater and I wanted to do my comedy, which was The Mask with Jim Carrey, which was great fortune, great fun to make. And action adventure, I always meant to come back to horror. And as the years went by, I started to concentrate on what would be the third in what I considered a personal trilogy of reinventing classic horror. A New Line wasn't really going to make a third Elm Street. After number two, they thought, well, maybe there's no place else to go in the series. So going back to Wes Craven's DNA from the brilliant original, we went and made some moves on Elm Street 3 that became a format that they made a number of other films about. The Blob was something that was a great film in pop culture, but was a pretty low budget film even back in the day, and I knew we
Right.
could do so much more with that concept. And finally, Witchboard seemed to fit into that zone where the original, let's give him credit, started the whole Ouija board movie subgenre, if you want to call it that.
Sure.
But I was offered it previously, and I thought, well, I've seen too many Ouija board movies, but I was doing notes on pendulum boards. So it's a little bit synchronicity. As a filmmaker, pendulum boards are so visual. The um, to geek out on the history, pendulum boards have been around for hundreds of years, all the way back to ancient Egypt. Ouija boards were a natural evolution of pendulum boards.
Okay.
Pendulum boards were outlawed by the Pope. Women were being burned at the stake for having pendulum boards, which is why most of our audience doesn't really know about them. They were forbidden. And Ouija boards were developed with a planchette instead of a pendulum to do similar things. But pendulum boards are amazing. There's astrological signs, there's ancient symbols that they're designed to do different things, mostly spell casting, things like this, that I found were a more imaginative vehicle for a horror film. So when I was offered finally Witchboard, I thought, well, how about if I concentrate on my fascination, what really is Wicca? What are witches manifesting? I believe in a spiritual world, so I believe there's truth to all this. And I used real, as wild as the movie is, everything regarding the witches are based on historical fact.
Yeah, no, I one of the things I loved was that, the original Witchboard, it didn't really focus on actual witches. Yet your remake, it jumps right in and it kind of focuses on like a main witch. What was the I guess how did you reshape the stories that dynamics to kind of put this in the film?
Well, you're talking about the screenwriting phase.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. Bingo.
my friend Greg McKay had written an original version. It was closer to the original film, his screenplay. So we teamed up. I said, look, I'm going to take this into an entirely different place because I really don't do literal remakes, but I have a wonderful idea on how to reimagine this, bring new characters. Honestly, I was inspired by Jamie Campbell Bower in Stranger Things
Sure.
for the Baptiste character, even during the writing. We were lucky to get him on the first try and found a slot in his schedule. And Jamie's an amazing actor. And Madison Eisman as our lead lady, and Aaron Dominguez as our leading man, who's a new upcoming star. So I had a great cast, and we kept developing the screenplay through the casting. So ultimately, the process of writing was, I was inspired. I wouldn't have taken the piece. I wanted to take the idea of possession through a board further and flip it to having both spirits experience
Yeah, that was cool, man.
experience the time frame. Well, that look, I don't want to give away a
And
twist.
we don't want to say none. So, given your history with practical effects like the Blob, how did you kind of balance practical effects with CGI in Witchboard?
There's not really a balance. CGI was really to clean up.
Okay.
I find practical. Look, I helped pioneer CGI, so I love CGI. The Mask CGI was brand new, and it
Right.
was the perfect tool for that. But in horror, the cast themselves carry a greater tension about themselves because they know we're at a full scale set where something really amazing is about to happen. I promise them I'm very safety conscious.
Sure.
So intellectually they probably know, but anything there's a different tension. And fear is a herd instinct. So if my cast members have a certain tension about them doing the scenes, it communicates to the audience much better than green screen acting, as we call it, might in a different environment. So everything you see happening to Madison's character in particular, full scale sets, real time in camera, including I had to build her whole bedroom 8 feet in the air.
Oh wow,
And
that's wild.
the bathroom she really dives down in an endless bathtub. The,
So
the,
cool.
I don't want to give away too many things. Some of these are in the trailer, but the hands coming up out of the bed. Imagine being Madison. She's really sat through that for several takes with puppeteers under the bed. Those are
Wild. I love it.
real time human hands grabbing our courageous actress. So that fear factor is built in.
I love that, man. That's amazing. And the film was shot in both, if I'm not mistaken, Montreal and New Orleans, right?
Right.
How did these locations kind of contribute to the film's setting and mood?
Well, first of all, New Orleans, one of the reasons I was interested in that, it was I spent some time there alone personally. I had a family member in a hospital, so I spent like 5 days in New Orleans wandering around the magical shops.
Right.
And the atmosphere in the real New Orleans is amazing. And some of the non-tourist magic and voodoo shops you can feel a dark presence. So I don't recommend that experience to our audiences, but it stayed with me. And I thought the colors, the music, the food in New Orleans is so tied in my mind to witchcraft and magic and cats. I felt I had to, put it all in one film the way I'd not seen it. And Witchboard was the perfect vehicle.
That's awesome, man. I love it. And the story kind of has a narrative that goes back to the 1700s, How did you kind of approach like integrating both periods together into, like a contemporary horror story?
Look, I don't like flashbacks.
Right.
So in my mind, there's a parallel action.
Yeah.
And what our contemporary heroes do, this is a one-off magical object, just like The Mask. I love what Hitchcock used to call MacGuffin movies. The Maltese Falcon was a MacGuffin movie. The Mask was about one magical mask. Witchboard is about one ancient board that's stolen from a museum. And by that board being activated again, changes events in the 1700s. So there is a parallel storyline. I don't want our audience needs to know this is a contemporary horror movie. We are there to scare the hell out of you.
Oh yeah.
But I am fascinated with Wicca, uh, what they call white magic and black magic, and why a medieval woman would have turned to the absolute darkest side with a powerful black magic. I want to believe in that for the film to be scary and for my audience to believe in the mythology of the film.
That's wild, man. And also with that, Emily's, the main character's journey, involves both kind of supernatural and also personal struggles. You know what I mean? Um, how did you kind of work with Madison to kind of portray that complex like transformation?
For me, drug use and horror have a weird connection. I did this in Elm Street 3, if you remember Freddy Krueger with his
Of
needle.
course, the fingers. Yeah, yeah.
And we got notes, I got notes after that from people that were struggling with heroin and things and said, thank you, because it scared the hell out of them and they got off the needles after that. So I think a draw to addiction also applies to magic. Magic can be a gateway drug. We all manifest. We're all doing in my opinion, we're all doing forms of magic every day. So we hope through positive manifestation, we come up with something perhaps original in our work. But in witchcraft, it's a more focused intention, just like tarot cards or like Ouija boards. It's a cautionary tale that just like drugs, it can lead to a very dark space. So I like using that as a metaphor in drama, and it gave Madison and I something to work on. Her obsession with the pendulum board is connected to her attempt to kick drugs. It's this very
Right.
similar obsession. I find that very authentic and believable.
Yeah. That's amazing, man. I love it. So, given the legacy of the original film, how did you kind of balance honoring fans' expectations versus like introducing new elements, to attract like a contemporary audience?
Well, look, I chose Witchboard because it's a great piece of pop culture and beloved in its way, but there's room for improvement. I don't believe in literal remakes where you just recast it and say, okay, we're doing this story again. I wouldn't have done this, but the things I was trying to develop for an original horror film fit into it perfectly, I realized at one point. And I thought, well, it's great. It's just like The Blob for me, or even Elm Street 3, where I can take some classic horror and just explode it with my own original ideas. So, I'm sorry, I'm losing your question. Can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, of course. I said, given the legacy of the original film, how did you kind of balance honoring fans' expectations with new elements to
Well,
attract the audience?
what I try to do, and it's the reason I mentioned the Blob, I try to literally honor the original. What's my memory of the original? What was the vibe the original had at that time, and why did it work at that time? And what's fun is Kevin Tenney, who did the original film, recently saw our new take on it.
Oh,
I thought
cool.
he'd be furious with me because it's such a departure, but he loved it. You know,
Really?
well, he did. We honor various things. I don't want to do
Yeah.
too many spoilers, but there is a love triangle in ours. There's some certain visual effects were inspired by what he attempted to do at that time, and the classic shower scene, which is famous
Yeah.
back in the day because of MTV. People have asked me, "Oh, are you honoring Alfred Hitchcock, or is it an homage to Hitchcock's shower?" Well, actually, it's an homage to Kevin Tenney and Tawny Kitane's amazing shower scene in the original Witchboard. So, I definitely had to do a shower scene, but I wanted to do a shower scene unlike anything anybody's ever seen before.
That's wild, man. I love it. That's super cool. All right, listen. So, last question I got, do you have any kind of upcoming projects or genres that you're looking to explore in the future?
I have a really compelling sci-fi. I can't talk
Ooh,
much about it. It's
cool.
sci-fi into horror,
Okay.
and we'll see. We never know exactly which goes first. There's two different projects that I've developed, and I'm not going to wait so long between films. I spent a lot of time. COVID slowed us down. This was an independent film. I wanted it to look like one of my big studio films. I think we succeeded. So we
Great.
took a little extra time and care on Witchboard.
Cool, man. That's awesome. Listen, I appreciate the time. I wish you best luck with Witchboard. Like I said, it's fantastic, and I'll get the word out there.
Good. Tell people to go to Witchboard Movie 2025. We have we're giving it away. We're doing some amazing little short clips on TikTok that are a riot. Jamie Campbell Bower in this movie is unforgettable. So, we had our fun.
Thanks, sir. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.